Hey guys, Tomas here. It has been a long time since I've done one of these reviews. You may be rightfully wondering where I have been. Well, the good news is I have some really cool stuff on the way. These past 6 months, I've been working intensely on my new upcoming film, Keepers of the Blue. I'll be giving you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of that today during the review. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the Canon R5 and why this may be the best camera that I have ever used. Throughout videography and photography, the best thing the camera can become is an extension of yourself. You don't want to have to think when you take photos and video, you want to just do. And I'm proud to say that that is no different with the Canon R5. I've been using this camera for the past year, which is why I've been holding off on doing an in-depth review. I want to make sure all the information I'd be giving you guys was well thought out so I can go into the pros and cons and why I'm going to probably be using this camera for a long, long time. The Canon R5 came out in 2020 and rocked the world. People were going crazy over the specs of this camera, and it pushed the mirrorless industry forward. For the first time, it was not Sony who was pushing the mirrorless industry, it was Canon. And Canon did a great job picking it up from the Canon EOS R that was released prior. The R5 has a 45 megapixel sensor. It has capabilities of shooting 8K RAW, 4K in C-Log, and the color science in this camera is unbelievable. The ergonomics are also amazing. I find this camera very easy to use and very customizable, so you can go out and do what you do best. I've had the pleasure of using this camera on several different assignments, namely one being with the Smithsonian Channel. I was tasked with going out to different areas to try to photograph and video different instances, such as with peregrine falcon, such as with scrub bush and different types of ecological environments, and all sorts of amazing stuff. But where this camera shined was not in its ability just to do video and photo. It was its ability to be so compact and you can bring this camera anywhere. I'm proud to say that when the crew that I was working on with these different assignments saw this camera, they switched from their Reds and ended up buying R5s because they were so excited with everything you get from this tiny package. So let's dive into it. The number one thing I want to talk to with the R5 is the image quality. Now, again, you're getting a 45 megapixel sensor. That means you're going to be getting a lot of detail, which is very, very important for bird photography. So when you are going out there and doing nature photography of different types, sometimes your subjects can be very, very far away. It's important for me to be able to crop. I love using crop and I do it all the time. And that was one great thing that I had with my previous body, the Canon 90D, which was my previous body for photography. Now I get the best of both worlds with the R5 with photography and videography. You get your 45 megapixel sensor. It can shoot up to 20 frames a second with the electronic shutter, but there is a caveat to that. So when you are shooting with the mechanical shutter, you are shooting up to 10 to 12. When you shoot with the electronic shutter, you shoot up to 20, but you are not going to get the same amount of dynamic range that you would get when you're using the mechanical shutter. That is a small sacrifice though when you take into account that this camera shoots insane bit rates. And I am proud to say that I've gotten some amazing images that are super backlit that I was able to bump up the shadows and save the entire image. Here's a couple of images of some great white sharks. I had the privilege of going on an expedition out to Guadalupe Island off of Baja California, Mexico. There I was able to shoot amazing great white sharks. These were 15-foot monsters of animals and they were just beautiful. I mean, and the camera captured that amazingly. I'm super happy with how the images turned out. And just so you know, none of these images had to use flash. All of this is coming from that camera's ability to bring up those shadows and that beautiful Canon color science to make it so that you're getting some amazing, amazing material. Again, Canon hits a home run with its color science. I mean, the colors that you are going to be getting with this camera are nothing short of amazing. When you compare this camera with other different brands and bodies such as Sony and Nikon, it's going to be a bit of warmer colors, so just take that in mind. Some real world examples when it comes to the image quality was when I was shooting great gray owls. So one of the big things that I have a problem with when I was shooting with DSLR was when I'd get into low light situations, I would sacrifice big on image quality. It'll surprise you guys to know that this camera did extremely well, even with its high megapixel count, with super dark and kind of like bleak conditions. I was getting up super early to do this documentary on great gray owls up in Minnesota, and there I was faced with conditions where it was snowing, it was dark, it was 5 a.m., so we were not going to be getting that much light, especially in the wintry conditions. But this camera held up just fine, and the video that I got with that camera was nothing short of award-winning. All of the footage that you may have seen in my previous film, Sentinels of the Boreal, was all taken with the Canon R5, or at least probably 90% of it. It's amazing that you're able to get some great photos from a camera that is so small, but also be able to use for video, and that's what we're gonna go into next. The big thing that I want to sell with this camera was its video quality. So when this camera first came out, it caused a lot of controversy because of overheating. Let's get that out of the way. I've had this camera overheat on me 3 times. One of which being it was probably around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The other 2 examples was when I had this camera in a housing unit that I would be able to put this camera underwater with. And because it was in that casing, it started to get warmer a lot faster. Overheating is a problem with this camera, I'm not going to lie. So when you are going out and shooting for hours and hours and hours, you do run the chance of having an overheat. But again, in the past year and a half that I've been using this camera, it's overheated on me 3 times. So that is a good thing. And considering that they've had a lot of software updates to try to iron out how this camera operates is a great thing. So when it comes to cinematography with this camera, you're shooting with a full frame sensor. I tend to shoot 4K at 120 frames a second. You're going to be getting insanely sharp 4K video with this camera. I recommend that you check out the comparison. So one of the reasons why this camera had an overheating problem in the first place was because it's shooting 4K oversampled video. That basically means that the camera is essentially recording at a higher resolution, and it's basically downscaling that image into 4K. That means you're gonna get a very sharp picture. You run the risk of overheating, but you're getting a very sharp picture, which is amazing. So when I'm shooting all of this amazing wildlife, especially with my new film coming out called Keepers of the Blue, which featured great white sharks, it features pelicans, it features all sorts of really cool aquatic themed wildlife, I had a great time seeing that super sharp image, especially when I'm pairing it up with super awesome lenses. Staying on the topic of video quality, I did not use the 8K RAW that often. I just don't have any purpose for it right now. It's great to know that I do have that ability to shoot in super high resolution, such as 8K. It also shoots at 4K at 120. As I said, it doesn't shoot with sound at that rate, so you just have to know that and take that into account. But I don't usually use sound anyway when I'm shooting at that type of frame rate. You do have the ability to dumb down the 4K a little if you are shooting for super long periods of time. That is an option, so just take that into account. This camera handled super high ISOs in video underwater, which is super awesome. Underwater, light works differently. It changes completely. And I found it very difficult to adjust sometimes because the low light conditions would be very tough on the camera in order to get that image. But I was happy to know that the R5 handled it just fine. If I remember correctly, if you are shooting video, you can bump that ISO all the way up to 25,600 and you are still able to get an image that is relatively usable. And if you're shooting at that condition anyway, and you're getting an image that is at least usable, you should be happy. That is pretty amazing. And we are definitely living in the golden age of camera production in this day and time. Let's stop for a quick ad here. If you love sharks and you love aquatic life, be sure to tune into my new film coming out called Keepers of the Blue. This was an amazing project done in
I think the important thing for people to understand is that sharks in our environment are a very good thing. When we see sharks, we know the environment is healthy. And when they're not there, it's not a balanced environment. It simply can't sustain itself.
The interconnectedness between us and the ocean the way it allows people to see deep within themselves and really understand where they come from and how we're all connected. It's just such a valuable resource to all of humankind. You know, we have to do good for it because it does good for us. We just can't lose it.
So this was an amazing collaborative effort to showcase some beautiful ocean creatures, as well as showcase the amazing scientists that are helping protect these ocean creatures every single day. You can find tickets if you want to watch this movie in theaters. It's going to be some local theaters in Connecticut on April 22nd at 7 p.m. You can find the ticket link there. I made sure to make this event free so that people going can donate more money to the nonprofits involved. This is about them. This isn't about me. So I wanted to make sure that that was definitely exemplary in this project. So if you're going, be sure to try to donate to those amazing nonprofits. If you are out of state and you still want to watch this film, I'm making sure to also release this film online on YouTube. You can find that link in the description. So don't worry. I hope to see you at the premiere, no matter if you're online or in person. If you come in person, you can see some amazing talks with the scientists. We're going to be bringing in life-size shark jaws and all sorts of cool stuff. So I hope to see you there. So we're going to keep going here. So we talked about the overheating, we talked about the video quality, we talked about the image quality. Let's talk a little bit about the autofocus. This camera's autofocus is nothing short of magic. The animal eye detection is insane. I'm taking pictures of birds, taking pictures of sharks, and all of a sudden I'm seeing that little indicator go around the shark eye. That is incredible. And the fact that we've got camera technology to get to that level already is just stunning. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm overselling this, but to me, it's magic. I'm able to produce whatever I want in a way that is impactful for an audience. It makes me so happy when I have a camera that is able to help me do that. So maybe that's why I'm just so excited about stuff like this. If you are comparing this camera with like something like the Sony A1, which is Sony's new flagship, this is Canon's flagship from 2020. One can probably say that Canon's new flagship is the R3, depending on who you're talking to. If you want to compare this camera's autofocus, I highly recommend you check out a review by the none other than, I think I'm pronouncing this right, is it Jan Wegener? Jan Wegener? He's the Australian guy who takes amazing bird photos, and he compared both autofocus systems, and he thought the R5 seemed to do better in terms of video, and both of them were about the same in terms of photo. So this camera is ponying up with other cameras that are probably about double to triple the price, and it's still doing an amazing job. So it just shows you're getting an amazing amount for the price of the camera. With autofocus with humans, it works just as well, if not even better. You know, I'm shooting at weddings, I'm shooting at different portraits, and it's always grabbing that eye, even when I'm shooting at super wide apertures like at f1.4, f1.2. It's amazing. I have nothing bad to say about the autofocus. In terms of the ergonomics, when I say this camera becomes an extension of myself, I'm not lying. I mean, I hold this camera, I know where all the buttons are. The buttons are laid out super, super nice for everyone using the camera. It has an amazing shutter shield on it. If you're taking lenses off, there's a little shield that's produced. It just folds down. That's super cool to see. It also has tons of amazing buttons that help me out. Like, I love the joystick, I love the wheel, I love everything about the camera, and everything's placed in a certain way. You can also customize each button to what you want. Personally, I have the function button to switch from photo to video. You can switch from photo to video in like 2 seconds, which is amazing for someone who is like me, where I hybridize being a photographer and a videographer depending on the assignment I'm doing. So that is a huge advantage if you are going out there and trying to be both roles. So the resolution, is this the best camera I've ever used? Yes, and it's not because necessarily this camera can beat out a Red in terms of video quality. I haven't done a comparison there, but this comes close if we were to do a comparison. But it's the fact that you can transport this camera basically everywhere and you're getting such an amazing package. It's weather sealed, the ergonomics are amazing, you're getting great image quality. As far as a nature photographer goes, this is the nature photographer's dream, no doubt. You're getting super high megapixel counts. It's in a fairly affordable price when you're talking about the grand scheme of things. And I'm proud to say that I've earned the money back on this camera tenfold because the amount of assignments I've been able to do, because guess what? Now I have a camera that can shoot in that video quality that people are looking for. Guys, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe this video. Be sure to also check me on Instagram at TomasKak, and be sure to check out my next film, Keepers of the Blue, releasing April 22nd, 2022. Hope to see you there.